Hey, good morning, y'all. Jerry Maniak here. Mike's out on vacation this week, so I'm taking the call. So excited to be with you. I got some good stuff for you this morning. Monday, January 13th. It is absolutely freezing cold up here in Minneapolis. -2. Feels more like -8, so we're in for a little cold brush here for a minute. But go ahead, get yourself comfortable. We'll get started here in a little bit. Just waiting for a few more people to get on. Everybody kind of just starts getting logged in, so we'll get the show on the road here in just a minute. And excited to be with you guys. If you just logged in, know your computer screen isn't frozen. We're about to start here in a little bit. It's Jerry Maniak, hosting you guys. Happy to be here today. And we're going to get going here in probably about another minute or two. So hang tight. All right, well, we'll get things rolling here. Happy Monday to you. Hope you guys had a great weekend. I know I did. I'm a football fan, so I always enjoy sitting back and watching some of the NFL action. We're excited out here in Minneapolis. Our home team, the Vikings, are taking on the Rams fans. So if we got any Rams fans on the call, good luck to you guys. Excited for what I got for you guys today. A couple of different topics here, but kind of a big one here. And you guys, I'm sure you guys have heard Mike talk about this plenty of times. Formal financial plans. There's an Advisor magazine that kind of puts some statistics on financial plans and how much they get implemented. Kind of interesting here. So they found that 30.4% of of clients implement 20% or more of their plan. So they don't even have 50% of people that even complete that plan, and then 51.4% implement less than 20% of that plan. So half the people don't even end up implementing the plan, and then 18.2% implement none of the plan. And when we look at it from a 5Q perspective, and I can understand this, and is what Mike always talks about too, as well, is with financial plans, how quickly is that financial plan out of date? Instantaneously, the moment we go out the door with the plan, or we hand it over to them. And the reason is, and I get it, a lot of times people kind of like to have, they kind of like having something kind of mapped out. But what's the problem with that? The problem is that the moment we hand out the door, it's dead, because there's plenty of things, because financial plans are predictive in what it is that we're showing a client that they're going to be able to have. Sequence of returns comes in instantly. When we're putting our averages out there, it's out the door. Sequence of returns is a problem. People's spending habits are changing from year to year. So with financial plans, the moment we hand them out the door, they're basically inept from that point forward. So what's the difference? What do we use? We use the 21-point checklist. Are we being predictive with the 21-point checklist? No, in fact, we tell everybody we don't even have a crystal ball. If you look in the way that we set up portfolios with the 50-50, we're saying we don't know what's going to happen. And we always talk about this. We want to promise things that we know we can happen. So how do we do that? We say 50% in FIAs, 50% in the market. And if the market goes up, the market's going to go up. We know that's going to happen. And if the market goes down, the market's going to go down. And for the safe portion of the portfolio, that's why we have fixed index annuities, because we know no matter what, if the market's up, we're going to get a 0. And if the market, or it's down, we're going to get a 0. And if the market goes up, we're going to get a portion of the gain. And we can take our withdrawals off of the FIA side when the market's down. And so this allows us to be able to make promises that we can keep. And on the 21-point checklist, what we're going to be able to do is every year we're going and we're taking a look at that, making sure that we're implementing those items and they're putting those things in place and continuing to keep it up to date. But that's why I like the 21-point checklist when it comes, because it's not something where it's predictive, where we're trying to tell people what things are going to be. And that's what makes us different from a lot of other advisors, because many advisors, obviously, unless they're part of 5Q Group, they don't have a 21-point checklist to be able to set up that difference. So many of them are being predictive, and they don't have another route to be able to go out to bring people on board. And so love the 21-point checklist. Get out there, use it. If you're not up to speed on it, I'm going to talk a little bit about it today. But, I think, there is probably some place, with some strategy, obviously. I'm not saying there's no strategy that we use, but, putting a plan together, it's just funny how it is with clients. And it's just the reality of it is, the moment we hand it to them, it's really basically dead. So how to sell anything, that's kind of my call for today. Jill Konrath is an author, and there's a person, they put together an article, read all of her books, and put together a number of items on how to sell anything to anybody. And we thought that this was kind of interesting because there's a lot of points that tie into how 5Q Group works and how we do things. And there's a lot of validity to what's being said here. And she's a great author here when it comes to selling and whatnot. So first thing that she had said is it's not about you. So the sales process, we want to definitely make sure it's about our clients. And one of the things that we always talked about when it came to doing seminars is, looking at, greatest generation versus baby boomers. So what we always say is when you're going to brag about yourself, where do you want to do all the bragging? We want to put our credentials, what we're all about, where we went to college, all of those things in the slides so people can read it. But we don't want to be getting out there bragging about, hey, I'm LUTCF. Here's why I'm really smart. Here's why I'm authority. And the big difference is people who like that, greatest generation, love that. Authority wasn't a problem. You look at baby boomers who hate authority, so they're not getting impressed. They're getting turned off when we get out there and we talk that we're the authority, we're smarter than them. And honestly, if you look at Gen Xers and millennials too as well, with all the information that's out there these days, I would say that's probably the know-it-all generation that's out there. So building trust is much more important, but talking all about us and why we're so great and why we're such an authority, that's all about us. What we need to do is we need to make this about them. So keeping it all about them and not about us is a much better task when we're dealing with prospects and clients, 100%. And we want to make sure we're doing our research out here too as well. So one of the things that we do here at 5Q Group is definitely when putting together the system, research was done. What was some of the research that we've done? Well, we had 60,000 meetings of recorded tapes out there. Tapes. I guess I'm dating myself here. Digital recordings here of meetings. So it's not anecdotal evidence. It's looking, and if you look at how the system was built, it wasn't built from, Mike didn't build the system. The clients built the system. The clients built the system based on how they wanted to be spoken to and how they wanted to be dealt with through the process. And then we just tweaked the process as we're going through. Now, virtually, there hasn't been a lot of tweaks in it over the last 20 years, but there's been a few that have kind of gone on. But if you look back, talking about doing your research, you look back, years and years ago on a lot of the different sales, Zig Ziglar, and there's a few others out there that were great and a lot of people had used. There's some great things that came from a lot of the individuals from years and years ago, but much of that, I don't know that it was necessarily research. A lot of it was anecdotal evidence based on personality and how to be likable and things like that. Nowadays, we have so much more research that's been done, and a lot of it's been kind of kicked off, back in 2000 there's a number of people, and it really kind of took off since then, where people realize, hey, there's a lot of information that's out there, and people are interested in the science of selling. And I mean, right here we have the book Science of Selling by David Hoffield. Motivational interviewing, that's something that's obviously very big that we've put into the 5Q system. Mike's built in motivational interviewing into the system based on research, not the anecdotal evidence of it. Language of Trust by Malinsky, Daniel Kahneman, Thinking Fast and Slow, and Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. So it's the system wasn't put together like I said on anecdotal evidence. We want to make sure that there's research into it, and if you follow the system and you follow the 21-point checklist and you follow the scripts, rather than, I think it's great to go ahead, pick up these books, read them, and understand them. But all of these books that are right here that I'm pointing out, these are all things Mike did the reading and he helped implement in this, so you don't have to necessarily go ahead and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It was put into the 5Q system. So research, totally agree with them. Being research, I would go beyond that is, we've done our research, but making sure that we're implementing it. And Mike has definitely made it easy by building it all into a simple system by using the 21-point checklist. And we don't have to be perfect at every little piece, but if you just take one piece of the 21-point checklist, a week at a time, and keep boning up and getting better and better at it, you're going to be that much better off on the selling trail. And you can know that the research was done. Mike's made it easy. The research was done and was put in so that you could be successful when you're out closing those cold clients. And I will tell you, the 5Q system is really built for going out and closing the most difficult clients. I think that our own clients, when we're going back and we're doing replacements and we're making changes and doing things right there, it's fairly easy because we've already established trust with our own clients. The 5Q system and the research was done really to help build trust and with clients that we don't already have trust with, which is people coming off of marketing. And that's really what it comes down to, is building trust with brand new people, because you've all noticed that's why it's so much easier with existing clients, because you already have that trust. The second thing was building rapport. Building rapport. How do we build rapport with 5Q group? Now, some of the old theories and thoughts on building trust and rapport with people, and I think that a lot of times it's just kind of grilled into people as salespeople, or just their theory on getting to know someone that they don't know, which is trying to find commonalities. That's what I would say typical sales. Even today, I still run into people that they're like, hey, we build rapport by finding commonality. But in my opinion, and what Mike would tell you too as well, is that's a bit shallow. I'll give you an example of why we want to build a deep rapport that's meaningful. And I'll give you an example of that. So if you had two guys, you have a guy that drives a Mercedes, wears a $1,500 suit, Rolex watch on his hand, lives in the city and works a white collar job, and very wealthy guy, and he's on his way to the hospital or the clinic to get checked up. And then you have another guy who's daily, maybe he's a farmer from the country, wears a cowboy hat, he's a rancher, and drives a Ford F-150, and he may be wealthy too as well, both of them, and they're going to the doctor's office. How much really do these two guys have in common? Come from different worlds, different backgrounds, different way of life, different way of thinking. Probably not a ton of things that are uncommon on likes and interests and things like that. And they both know it, but they go to the clinic and they spend some time there, and when they're leaving, they catch each other in the elevator and they're going downstairs, and it turns out both of them have prostate cancer. Now, what I would say is, how much do those two guys have in common now? They have a commonality, and it's on something that's deep rooted inside of them in a deep level. It's not shallow. These two guys have a lot to talk about. They both love their family. They both want to take care of this issue. This is a very serious thing to their core. And my point is, this is a core issue to these people, and now they have a lot more in common. They have some things to talk about, and it's deep rooted. It's beyond things that are shallow, and that goes into how do we build rapport on 5Q group? Because just saying, hey, I fish, yeah, you fish too as well. I would say that's pretty shallow. I know that we can build great rapport there. How do we do it? We do it by gotzing people, getting on people's side, and when we're getting on people's side, the reason why this builds deep rapport. If you look at and it's opportunities within the sales process for us. If you look at a sales process with a client, you look at probably the most stressful time in the sales process, and the reason why it's stressful is if you look at a lot of people might say it's the close, but I would argue with the 21-point checklist process, the close isn't it. It's the objection is when it happens. And when someone gives an objection, they know they're going to get an objection, and they know that they're going to be met with a solution. I'm doing my fingers in quotations right here. And so that's what becomes a stressful situation. And is their objection valid? Absolutely, it's valid, and they're expecting you to come in and overcome that objection. But what do? We do something completely opposite of that. And this is where we build that deep-rooted rapport, because their objection is very valid to them and in their core belief, which is why they're getting. They're not doing it for fun and games. So with that objection, what do? We say, absolutely, I 100% agree with you, and we continue to go through and explain why it is that we agree with those people on that. And so when their fight or flight is high at that time, and they're nervous and they know what's coming, and their fight or flight is high, is when we come in and not only we just say, yeah, that's we agree with you. We don't say I agree with you, but, and then try to change your mind and sell them and educate them on why they're wrong, because that's not building deep-rooted rapport. We're going to go ahead and agree with them. Go ahead and agree with them, because really, I mean, any objection they have, it's valid, and it's valid to them, and it's meaningful. So when we can get on their side and we can get in their shoes in this issue to them that is a core belief for them, now we're able to build rapport, because there's something that's very meaningful that we've been able to get on their side about. And when we do this incrementally throughout the process, you look at throughout the sales process, anytime we teach that whenever we run into an objection, we want to go ahead and agree with them for, I could say 5 minutes, but I mean, heck, even if you did it for 1 minute or 2 minutes, and you can go in and you can actually explain back to them, why it is that they're right, then it flips the scripts. It changes the entire meeting, because they realize that, it allows them to be able to bring their fight or flight down and realize, hey, you know what? Me and this guy right here, we actually agree on some things, and they're things that cut down to the core, not shallow things like, hey, we both like, NFL football or something like that, or we're both Vikings fans. Those aren't core beliefs. So building deep rapport is a huge thing when it comes into that sales process, and we have a great skill and a way to do it in a genuine level by getting on their side. And I would challenge, whether you were using, I would say almost getting on your side and having that skill is more important than the 21-point checklist itself, because it makes you likable as well. We want to be likable people, and I will tell you, people do business with people that they like. So if they like you, you have your opportunity to get the sale, because you're building deep rapport, goes so much higher. I think Mike would agree with that too as well. The next thing here is know the buying persona. So know the persona of the person that you're selling with. And one of the great things here is do we know the persona of the person that we're dealing with? I would say yes, absolutely we do. Kind of going back to what we were talking about with having the 60,000 meetings that we've done. Who built the 21-point checklist process? Well, it certainly wasn't us. And like I said earlier, it hasn't changed a whole lot in the last 20 years, but there have been tweaks as there's been some changes that have gone on, and it's the same meeting over and over and over again. And it was an acute meeting that we put together based on what we thought would work. There was the research that was there, and then it was the clients that built it. So we started off, Mike, when he built the system here. He went from meeting to meeting, recording it, and then building it and setting it up. So we handled objections and issues in advance, and we figured out what were the things that were most important for a client in the meeting to be able to move forward. And when he ran into an issue, then he fixed it and built, okay, this is where they want to be, how they want to be spoken to. This is how they want to handle an issue. And then he changed the meeting, and then finally getting to the end of the meeting, built that perfect meeting based on how the clients wanted to be spoken to. You know, I don't know how many of you, when you've gone in and you've done a 21-point checklist meeting and you've experienced, hey, this was almost like, you know, I handed the client the script the night before and they followed right along just like it was script. I know I've had a number of guys that have came up and I couldn't even believe this. It was like I gave them the script and then just followed along with it. And if you haven't had that experience with the 21-point checklist, I would just encourage you, go back, take one item at a time and learn that. And you would even see a couple of these scripts, one or two of them, three or four of them, and you'll get that understanding of how the 21-point checklist works. But that's the buyer persona. I don't think anybody understands the buyer persona better than we do with that. So great job to you guys, and I think we're right on what this person's article. I think we're falling just in line with that. And one of the other items was contribute first. So we want to contribute first. Well, how do we do that? I totally agree with that, right? When we put more in than what's expected, good things end up coming to us. So how do we contribute first? Well, all the non-financial things that we do for them. So we don't come in and even in our first meeting, we say, hey, we're going to, some people come in and they may not actually go forward with us, but we're going to help you with some of the things that you're doing. But on contributing first, we have all the non-financial items that we go ahead and we do for people, and we implement and we talk about many things most people kind of skip and miss. And we do those things, and it helps build that trust, and we build that rapport with folks first too as well. And then we get into selling secondarily. I've had guys over the years, it's actually pretty funny, where a number of people where they've said, God, Jerry, I got a problem here. I'm like, well, what's the problem? And they say, well, I went through all this. I didn't even presented any solutions, and the client wants to move their money over to me. I kind of laugh. I'm like, well, that's your problem. Then that's a heck of a problem to have, even before we even got in the sale plan or the FIA presentation. But that's what it is. I mean, when you look at it, why is that? That's because nowadays selling is really about earning trust. There's a lot of knowledge. There's a lot of places that you can go on the internet. It's different than 30, 40, or even 20 years ago. People can go learn about products and items and things like that. And heck, we have some great selling presentations too as well. I love the sale. Our clients love the sale. So many of you guys use it. The FIA presentation is phenomenal. So we'll use those things. But the reason why that happens is because really it's about what clients do business with, people that they like and people that they trust. And we do such a great job with that on the 21-point checklist. So ask questions and listen. We definitely ask questions and listen. I mean, that's the motivational interviewing aspect of the 21-point checklist. Probably one of the most important things in the sales process. So many times I get it, there's a lot of processes that are out there where guys that just, chat, talk, teach, preach, teaching, preaching out there, and asking questions. You guys do a great job with that. And, if you're following the scripts, if you're having trouble with asking questions, digging in with the scripts is a great way to kind of build that in until you learn the kind of the 5Q process of motivational interviewing and asking questions and having clients sell themselves. So be mindful of psychological fallacies. Anchoring effect, depending too heavily on information, on initial information. Decoy effect, third option helps people decide between the other two options. Rhyme as reason, don't tell, sell, preach, or teach. You guys hear that quite a bit. Loss aversion, loss is more painful than gain is pleasurable. Peak end rule, people remember the climax in the end. Curse of knowledge, experts have a hard time communicating to everybody else. And then confirmation bias, we accept information that aligns with our belief. And I would say you look at, looking at this one here, confirmation bias, how do we deal with them? Well, deal with this one. So we don't, when we're following the 21-point checklist process or the 5Q process, we don't tell anyone what they should believe. We use motivational interviewing and you have the clients tell us their beliefs. So we have them tell us. So when you're trying to tell people things, tell them how they should believe and how they should think, then there's no guarantee. Confirmation bias slips in there because we're trying to tell them what it is they should believe. But if we have them tell us by asking questions, we have them tell us and have them make up their mind make up their mind for themselves. That's where asking questions is so important. And we have the leading questions and using motivational interviewing and incremental sales is by having the clients tell us, because if they tell us, then we know they believe it. If we're telling them, we have no clue what it is that they believe. So I'm kind of moving along here. Approach at their level of emotion. So I think this is a good one here too as well. So Mike always I remember probably with the first year I was talking to Mike about this, and this one was always kind of a surprise for me, but it made a lot of sense. If you take your two fingers and you poke them together here, and you take you touch them tip to tip there, and then you push with your left one. You don't want to push someone too far, but what you want to do is you want to meet people at the same level of emotion. So you don't want to push them too far. You want to meet them with the same amount of pressure. So if someone is, kind of I guess short and you're being really happy, you want to meet them. If someone's really, really happy, you want to meet them by being excited and really, really happy. If someone's being terse and kind of, short or angry or whatever, you want to meet them with being a little bit short. I know that sounds opposite of GOTS. What I'm saying is more on an emotional level, because, and here would be my example, because if someone's a little bit kind of short or a little bit more kind of just, I guess they're not super happy or whatever. If they're a little bit kind of more on the grumpier type, terse and grumpy, I guess, if you could say, and you're in the meeting and you're coming in, oh, I'm really happy, this and that. A lot of times you can irritate that person almost in even more. So much like if they are super, super happy and your energy level's not there, they might think, hey, this guy's kind of a dud. So you kind of want to meet them. Mike always taught me that when I was in recruiting, is you want to meet them at their level until you can kind of maybe turn them around or stick with them and meet them emotionally on that level that they're currently at. Otherwise, emotionally, it can cause some issues there. And so I always thought that was a good advice. And when I put it into practice, actually, I was amazed at, really how that actually helped out and worked out in the meetings too as well. Leverage emotion. So, we definitely leverage these in the 5Q system: greed, fear, altruism, envy, pride, shame, 7 deadly sins. No, I'm just kidding. But I would say, you look at pride right there. So greed and fear, we leverage that on the agreement meeting to get them to come back. Pride, how do we, I would say when we're gotsing people and we're telling people, or getting on their side, not gotsing, but getting on their, well, I guess same thing, getting on their side where, we tell people how unequivocally, wow, that was, absolutely, you know what, you've done a great job, Pam. I can tell that you've put a ton of thought into decisions and the investments that you've put together and that you chose, and the advisor that you picked. Not a lot of people always put that much thought into it because they think, hey, I don't have enough time for that. I can tell that you're a person who is a thinker, puts well thought into it, and makes great decisions. So you can, with getting on people's side, we're able to leverage on that, make them feel good about the things that they, decisions that they made. And, that's what's so important, leveraging that emotion, getting on that becomes, you become more likable is what happens. So I think we definitely teach leveraging emotion when we're going through the 21-point checklist system for sure. So we're hitting on that point. So remember that we're selling to a person. So we always want to, I totally agree with this. Sometimes we just got to make sure, you just got to take a step back here, and you have to ask yourself, how would I respond to this sentence, this presentation, this question, and this email? Sometimes we put things together and maybe we don't put that thought through, and we need to look at, how would I respond to this? Am I going to, would I respond favorably to this? Am I speaking with, respect? Am I taking time to go through and make sure that it's understood? Or am I trying to rush people through and get them from point A to point B as quickly as possible? Am I making sure that they actually understand? If we're asking questions and are explaining it back, then we know that they're understanding, right? But even more importantly, one of the questions asked is, if someone was selling to or talking to my grandmother, am I talking to them the way that I would want them to be talking to my grandmother? Or would I be upset with how I'm dealing with them because, maybe grandma needs a little bit more time to understand things? Am I speaking in simple enough form for her to be able to understand how I'm going through? Or am I twisting her arm? Am I pushing her forward, too forward? Am I taking my time and being respectful in this, so that they're really understanding, and I'm not pushing that person, pushing my grandmother or someone else's grandmother in a way that I would be unhappy. If I found out, I would step in and I would kill the deal. So it's such a simple thing, but sometimes just taking a step back, because we get so busy on our daily basis. You have so many meetings, and it becomes just this, way of life. I'm out here, if they don't want what I have to offer, if they can't pull along or understand it, on to the next person. No, take time to make sure that, we're working in a helpful, respectful, um, uh, relaxed process manner, and we're talking to someone the way that we would want to be dealt with, or even more so, our grandmother would want to be dealt with. And I think when we take the time to make sure that we're doing those things, and we take a step back, over years and years, sometimes we kind of get ahead of ourselves on it. And I think it's really important to make sure that, we've analyzed. And really, I would say too, when you're going through the scripts too as well, that's where I think it's so important. Play both sides and roles of when you're doing the scripts. You're going to go through to your side, do the client side too as well. What would the client say? What are the different answers and responses or things? What could they answer? I think that's really important, because putting in through that thought, talk about research, putting through the thought and being prepared and knowing how you would answer these questions. A lot of it, if we follow the 21-point checklist system, or you follow the scripts in there, you're not going to have these issues because it's put into place. But play both sides of the role, and I think it's great to get in the shoes of your prospective prospects and clients, and play both sides of the role. So remember, we're selling to a person. So that's a couple of the items I wanted just to share with you guys just about making more sales, and I think getting on people's side. I think we're doing the 21 point checklist is right on target. But one of the last things here I want to talk about is how to we want to get more sales, but how do we speed up that sales cycle too as well? So HubSpot they put together a number of different things that are great for our business. Here's a list of items to be able to speed up the process. So automate repetitive tasks. I mean, that seems like a no-brainer, but I'll talk to a lot of guys, and I can tell you there's a number of things. You can screenshot this if you want here, and I'll get into some of these more in some detail. But automate repetitive tasks, set up agreed upon goals for each sales call, explore prospect objections before responding to them. I was kind of just talking about that before. Be clear about pricing very early on. Make it ridiculously easy for prospects to sign contracts from any device, technology. Focus on your highest performing channels. I think that's smart. Be a person you'd want to talk to. Absolutely. Be a person that we'd want to talk to. I think using GOTS, being thoughtful, those are areas we can do that. Use incremental closes. Create a plan for sales meetings. Surface objections early and often. Take the back and forth out of scheduling meetings with prospects. Leveraging social proof. Regularly clean your CRM to eliminate cold leads. Keep alignment with your marketing team around sales goals. Create a personalized experience for each prospect. So process simplification. So obviously there's going through and eliminating and analyzing your process and eliminating the things that are slowing you down. But delegate, I think, is an important one. I like to look at as you're growing a practice, so many guys get bogged down by paperwork, right? And so depending on what you want to, I actually even have talked to this about guys when it comes to money management. I have some guys that they manage their own money in their own portfolios. And I always talked about, and Mike has too as well, is that you can only be, you can either be a money manager or you can be a asset gatherer. And it's difficult to be able to do both. You can do them both, but I see the guys that are most successful, they're asset gatherers. So they delegate the managing of money to an RIA, and they become an IAR, and it allows them to simplify their process, right? Likewise, when I see advisors that are looking to be able to take that next step into growing their process or their practice, I'll talk with them, and they're great in front of people. They're great in the sales process, and then they get bogged down by paperwork, right? Eventually, there becomes a point where it makes sense financially, and I get it. Like, you don't want to go and pay the cost of having an assistant and pay the 60, 70, 80 grand. But I would tell you, if you want to move into that next process, you want to be in front of as many brand new people and in front of clients and prospects. You don't want to be back taking paperwork. The most successful advisors that I see out there, they end up having that staff, and they grow that staff because they value and they've understood if they want to grow the practice, they have to delegate. They have to train and take their hands off of some of those certain areas, and then that gives you more time to be in front of more clients. When you're great at sales, you want to be selling people. You're not great at paperwork. You can train someone to do that, and it allows and gives you more time to be in front of people. So you want to think about eventually, and I would say beyond paperwork, there's all the service things that come into as well. There's a lot of service questions. You're more skilled, and your abilities are to be in front of people, filling out paperwork and service paperwork. If you're spending all your time servicing people, then you're wasting time that you could be in front of people or working on your skills or making sure you're getting in front of people. So delegating is very important. Automating your business. So this is important, regardless of how we have a client come in front of us. Do we decide and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to teach, I have a guy that came off a seminar, or I have a guy that came off of a lead, or I have wherever I guess they came from, or hey, this guy's got $2 million, or this client's got 50 grand. Do we change the process that we go through? No, we teach, we go through the 21-point checklist, and we go through that process the same way. One reason I would say is because when you get people that are brand new clients, they don't always tell you the amount of money that they have. So someone may say they have 200 grand, they may have 1.5 or 2 million. So that's one reason why I would say not to do it. But also it's about automating. The reason why is if you're going to take a different process each and every time, if your process for bringing on a client or onboarding clients is different with each and every client, and you're restarting and reinventing the wheel each time, then you're going to slow down your process. Things aren't going to be efficient. So you want to make sure that you've automated how it is that I'm bringing those people on, and we have that with the 5Q process and the 21-point checklist. So, you look at it when McDonald's, they have the same process. It's a systematized process. They go, when you start your car up, there's not a different process each time you do it. Hey, I got to pump my gas 3 times this time, and then I start my car. This time it's 2 times, then I got to do it. Those are things, back in the day we had cars that were like that when we had carbureted cars, and it was a pain in the ass. But cars have now changed, and everything's automated. Things work smoothly. So automating our processes, and, I would say, if put it this way, if you had a drip system that you had set up, and I think it's very important to have a drip system, I'll get into that in a little bit. If you can automate that, you have it loaded with preset drip marketing that's going out, rather than if you had to write it every single week, the more automated that it is. Or let's say you had to send it out every single one by one to everybody versus having it going out, how much longer will that take? Automation and making things the same in your process is going to save you time and help you be more successful. I'm happy to discuss different things and walk through those options, but it's important. Delegating, definitely important too as well, and that's in any role as you become more and more successful. So set goals and objectives for each meeting and the next meeting. So number one, go ahead and make sure, most importantly, is going ahead and making sure, this is probably one of the biggest things. We talk about it all the time, and I can't preach this enough. If you want to speed up the sales process, you don't let a client leave. If you got anything from this entire meeting, whether it's a prospect or client, don't let that client leave until you've scheduled that next meeting. And I'm going to explain to you why it's important if you want to make sure that meeting sticks. So why is it important? So why do we need to go ahead and meet next Tuesday? So big things are is I think the reason why sometimes this doesn't get done is because when you have a great meeting with someone, whether it's a brand new prospect, client, whoever it is you feel like, God, we had great rapport. It was a great meeting. I'm going to have no problem. Sometimes you forget, but it's like, I'm going to have no problem getting this. I told them I'm going to put some details together, and then I'll get back with them. But then what happens is that meeting's not in the books, and they realize, hey, you know what? It's a nice day. I'd rather go ski. I'm going to go. They're going to go skiing, or have all these things, and then it just may not become as important. Whereas if they have it on the books, then they make their plans around that meeting rather than trying to fit you in. And so if you get anything, like I said, from the call, get those meetings scheduled in advance. Even if it was a great meeting, have that next meeting. And the great thing is too, as well, it puts a deadline on you. That way you're not pushing it off for 2 weeks. If you know you got a meeting in a week, you're going to get done and work on that right away. So it puts a deadline for you too as well. 2 simple strategies for overcoming price objections before they happen. So pricing, know what they are and have the client tell you it isn't a problem. So with us, do we talk about what our costs are before, right in advance? Yes, we do. We tell folks right away in the beginning of the meeting that We tell them that, half the people that come on board, there's no cost for this first meeting, and half the people that come move forward, and half don't. And people that, the more we do for them, the more things that we do, it's going to cost a little bit more, and the less it costs. But half the people, again, don't end up moving forward with us, and we help them with things that we can, and they go on their way. And the other half, they come on and do business. But we're going to look a little bit more deeper into your situation, what you have, and then we can establish a fixed price. So I think we do a great job with talking more pricing, how we get paid right at the beginning of our meetings. So clear and simple pricing, 100%. That's going to be something that's very important. Again, be a person that you would want to talk to. So getting on people's side, thinking through that. I think that that's something that we teach very well here. People do business with people that they like. Use an incremental close. So how do we use an incremental close? Well, number one, we start off with the 21-point checklist, or excuse me, with the survivor's guide and the 21-point checklist. And will anybody move because they don't have a survivor's guide? No one. No one's going to move just because they have a survivor's guide. But what it does is it just inches our foot in the door a little bit for a client to discover, well, maybe there are some things that he could have done better. And if they can believe that, hey, maybe there are some things that my advisor could have done better, then they could jump to that next conclusion that, maybe there's some other things that he could have done better too. And maybe some of those other things that he could have done better, maybe those are things that, could have helped put me in a better position, but because they weren't done, I ended up in a worse position. Or maybe potentially he didn't do them on purpose, or maybe he didn't care because it didn't benefit him. So the 21-point checklist itself is an incremental close. What they're saying is, hey, it's the whole boil the frog mentality. If you go for the jugular and you drop them in for the close too quickly, what does the frog do? It jumps out of the pot, right? So when you do it slowly, an incremental close, it's a process that you go through where you're chipping away at them throughout the process of the meeting. Where else do we do that? We do that in the FIA presentation too as well. We don't come out and say FIAs are great, come buy one. It's a slow process of having them understand, hey, you know what, going through the return, the return isn't the greatest in the world, but you know what, it's the right fit for me. There's some issues with liquidity, but you know what, this has enough liquidity for me. We take them through a process. So science is telling us using an incremental close, and then sticking to the plan. Create and follow a plan for a meeting. If we're going off the cuff on every single meeting, things are going to get slowed down. We're going to say things that bring up questions or concerns that maybe weren't ever even a concern, or we can cause problems when we use a different process each and every time. How do we deal with that? We have a process, 21-point checklist. We stick to it, and our meetings are going to go much quicker. And this was kind of a point I actually went through here already. Taking the back and forth out of scheduling the next meeting. So going ahead, we'll talk about it again. Go ahead and schedule those meetings, and then social proof too as well. Social proof's kind of an important thing. And the meeting process, I would say probably best example here would be if I'm in the FIA presentation. So when with my clients that are concerned with liquidity, why do they like the FIA, or why do they like the Warren Buffett investment? For all my clients that are concerned with liquidity, why do they choose the Warren Buffett investment? Do I tell them why, or do they tell us? No, we have them tell us why all of our clients that are concerned with liquidity are choosing the Warren Buffett option. And we use that many other times throughout the presentation, where we have the client give the social proof of why it is that people use this. Moving along here, use a CRM to improve the customer experience. If you're doing any sort of marketing, organizational skills, having the organization in there, and then when it comes to marketing, we need to make sure that we're staying in front of people. When you look when it comes to touch and marketing, I'll have guys that'll do seminar events or leads or whatever. If you're not using a CRM and a CRM with a drip, I think it's absolutely foolish, because they talk about how it takes 5, 6, 7 touches on a person to really be able to pull them in. And so if you're doing marketing, you have people that didn't move forward. I've had this happen many times where guys may do a marketing event or some sort of marketing, and they close 1 or 2 people off an event, and then they keep the funnel going. But then 6 months down the road, they have a client that came off a seminar event from using drip marketing. Because sometimes it's about timing there that's with those people. But you paid for it and you did the marketing. Make sure that you're dripping on those people. Make sure that you're staying in front of them. I've had people come back 2 years down the road. It doesn't cost much money to do. It's all about following the science of selling and staying on top of those people, and it's about timing. Sometimes it's timing that comes into play. So if you're not using a CRM or you're not using a drip system that's automated to stay in front of these people, heck, even in front of your own prospects with different topics, you're missing the boat. You need to have a CRM, and you need to have an active drip system that's going on and adding to it, and it's going to pay big dividends for you. And then kind of looking, the buying funnel here too as well. So back in the day, we needed less marketing, and we did more marketing and more sales. And now you got to do a heck of a lot more marketing. I would still argue, and sales a little less. And a lot of that is just because there's so much more marketing that's going out there. People are getting hit by so much more. I know the research shows that retirees are being hit like 300 times more than they were 20, 25 years ago. Although I would say still, though, when it comes to, although you need to do more marketing, I know people who have done events, got 25 appointments, 30 appointments, and they didn't close a thing. So I would still say that the sales process is just or more important. We just have to up our marketing when we're out there, because the sales process it's changed, but it's just as important than it's ever been out there. So 6 ways to create a personalized customer experience. So customer experience, yes, definitely important. How do we deal with it here? Well, we have the wow experience, right? And so if you haven't dove into the wow experience, this goes through all the details that you need to set up an experience that makes your prospects and clients say, wow. And if you've ever been or had an experience, maybe you're at a resort, a hotel, or a restaurant, and it's not talking about, hey, having great couches and marble floors and things like that. These are simple things, the little things that make the biggest difference when someone comes up, because it's a unique experience that shows that they're important, that you pay attention to the details, and these things can make a big difference. So if you haven't dug in, Archive Library here on the 5Q site, down on the bottom, the wow experience, right there, see the little red arrow, wow experience down there. Dive in and learn how to make some small tweaks and changes to the experience when a prospect and a client comes in. Because if people remember that and they have that wow experience, what do? They keep coming back. I'll tell you, when I go to a resort and it's absolutely fantastic and people are asking me about it, or I go home, what am I doing? I'm talking about this experience I had at a restaurant. When you wow, when you blow someone away, then they're sitting with their friends somewhere and say, hey, can you believe it? This advisor here, I had my financial advisor. I don't know if you've had this experience before, but we were at his office and he had fresh baked chocolate chip cookies that's my favorite. I was just blown away that they had that there. They had my name specifically on the marquee here, welcoming me in. Like, they cared enough to do those things. Just enough of those little things where it shows that they care and matter. Check out the wow experience. I think it's big if you haven't done that. And thought of the week here as I'm wrapping things up. Practice makes perfect. Nope. Practice doesn't make perfect. This is a great one I talk with my kids about. Practice makes progress. We have a lot of items and things that we can do on the 5Q system, and it's about making progress, getting 1% better, 1% better each day. So if there's an area that you need work on, hey, there's the 15-minute drill, right? Spending those 15 minutes, most important minutes in the morning, practicing, getting on people's side. That's a great way to go ahead and get a little bit practice being a more likable person. Going and picking up one of the scripts that I'm rusty on. There's some great, the non-financial topics. I still run it to say there's very few advisors that take the time to go through all those non-financial things. If you're not using it, the 21 Lite is a fantastic way to be able to separate yourself from your competitors out there. I have an advisor, Mark, that he uses this because he's seen the power of it so much, where it's this great lead in when he's in front of groups. We have the group presentation there, and he uses that so much. But the FIA presentation, there's so many things that you can use and you can take to get better. It's January here. Everybody's looking to get better. Go find an item or a weakness maybe area that you're at and practice. And when you make those small incremental updates and get better, it's going to make a huge difference for you. So I appreciate everybody's time today. Sorry, I went a little bit long, and work hard. You guys do a great job. Dive into the system, and let's make it a great January. That's all I got for you guys. Thanks a lot. I appreciate your time, and have a great 2025. Thanks, guys.